We're live.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, at 7 o'clock, we'll open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, folks. First item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any comment from the public at this point in time? John? No? Okay. All right.
Are we doing these in order or just freelance?
I'm sorry, sir?
Well, we're not doing anything for the park until later, right?
Right, that's the third item on the agenda tonight. Okay. All right, we'll move on to new business, police contract. Obviously, we've been in negotiations now for a matter of weeks, I guess. We offered the village a $600,000 offer, asking for a 1-month extension. Their offer to us was $673 originally. It's my understanding now that it's at $650. Okay. We offered $600 with asking for a 1-week extension or a 1-month extension. Both items were denied or rejected. So we're back here again this evening to discuss that very issue. The current assessment for police coverage in our township is 2 mills. 2 mills brings in $525,000 a year for the township. That's assessment strictly with the township. The discussion has been possibly raising that millage rate to $225. If we raise the millage to $225, that would generate $590,000. Okay. To satisfy what the village wants in the contract of $650, we'd have to raise the millage to $2.50. That would generate $656. My concern is having police coverage for the township residents. I would hate to put us in a position to where we don't have a contract. It is the desire of the board to contract with the village. There's options out there with the county sheriff. To be quite honest with you, I expected a little more attendance tonight from the public, but that's fine. Contract with the sheriff, we don't really have hard numbers on it. His costs are about $150,000 per man. Okay. There's every potential it could be more money to contract with the sheriff and some logistic issues that go along with it. It's a fine establishment, fine department. Got the utmost respect for the sheriff and his people, but we would like to keep it local. At least that's the sentiment that I've been hearing from residents throughout the township. So tonight, I guess I'm looking for some input, obviously, from the board on the board's pleasure. Do we want to increase the millage to reflect 225? Do we want to pay the contracted price that the village is offering us at $650? I'm going to open the floor, okay, for discussion, comments.
Well, Gary, I'll start. You probably figured I would. So the point I made the last time at the last meeting, I'm going to make it again. Our negotiations have not been with the police department. There's no animosity, there's no tension, there's no disagreement with the police chief or the police department. They have not been a part of the negotiations. So whatever happens, keep in mind that they were a neutral outside party. This has nothing to do with any of them. I also want to recognize that we realized early on, if we don't reach an agreement, our costs go up, but the villages go up. It's a sucker's choice. Both sides lose. So right from the beginning, we said, you know what, we got to make this work. We got to make sure that we get the best possible deal for the residents. We want to make sure, and the deal that we put out there, we thought was a very equitable, fair deal. It raised our costs 150, essentially dropped the village's costs, and it maintained the coverage that everybody's been happy with, okay? The new contract suggests that we will have exactly the same coverage, which is why it is so hard to negotiate an increase of $150,000 or $200,000 for no additional coverage. I mean, myself, I struggle with that because it's one thing to get additional value. If it was an additional $200,000 to get 5 ambulances and 4 paramedics, I'd say, okay, we can show some value, we can show some benefit. It's the same coverage the day after we signed the contract as it was the day before. Okay, and right now I haven't heard anybody say that the coverage hasn't been good. So our thought process was, let's make a fair offer. We understand costs went up. We understand there was a negotiated salary increase, probably a little bit late, but eventually an increase was given and it was totally justified. The problem we have is we are going beyond, and I've beat the numbers up. I have looked at them. I have provided reams of analysis on every single option. And we said, you know what, we can probably work our way around the 2.25. It makes sense. When it goes beyond that, it feels like we're just throwing money at a problem to make it go away. And that's not what I ran for. That's not why I took this position to just say, you know what, just let's get it done. Just throw the towel in, because next year the problem is going to be worse. You've established a new baseline, and there's going to be increases, and the officers they're going to have probably additional costs, and it's going to warrant support. So even though it looks like, well, gee, you're trying to get rid of the township police. No, not at all. Absolutely not. But at the same time, everybody in this room, most people, are taxpayers. And to tell somebody, so the average home price in Almont is $300,000. And what we're voting on was, hey, let's just raise all those people's taxes for the average home, $75 a year. They're going to look at me, they're going to look at him, they're going to look at everybody on this board and say, what did I get for that $75? Nothing. You got what you had yesterday. That's hard. Maybe I'm too data driven. Maybe this is just my personal, maybe I'm too analytical. Maybe I should be deciding to just make it go away, but I can't. And I'm going to stand my ground, which from the beginning has been give a fair offer, make sure that we're paying our share of the expense, make sure that our coverage is what it was, but I can't just support throwing additional money at a problem just because the other option is for the village to sit down with us for a week. I found today another way we could make this work, and they could sit down with us and we could make it work, and everybody would walk away happy. So I'm not going to say anymore. Everybody in the village is a township resident. So I understand. I don't want anybody losing. There should be no losers in this. It can come out a win-win. And that's what I think the negotiation team was working towards. So.
Your streaming is down.
I'm sorry?
The streaming is down.
It's up?
Out.
How do you know that?
I'm getting texts.
Oh, okay.
SOP.
Did that at the last meeting, didn't it?
I have a question, just for information.
Can you wait
Just
until
wait
the
until we get
cameras come
the
back
thing
on?
going.
Oh.
The camera went out.
So this conversation is open to the public to speak also?
Not
After
really.
After the board speaks, you do get a chance.
I don't want to miss it.
Did it go back up? Because I just got a message it's back up.
Gary's more technically proficient.
Red
than
light
me.
went up, back up. You may have to repeat it.
Very well.
Get right to the point here. Okay?
Yeah, we are, no.
It's red.
What's red?
All
That-
the,
that's
Those
not
are
the
just for the
camera.
microphone.
I'm,
The camera's up there.
no one is saying that it's
Hold on, I'm
How's that?
Checking.
It's what?
I have someone just said it never stopped for them. I just got a thing saying it's working.
It's on YouTube, right?
Yeah, I know.
Swimming in the park.
Shoot. Someone's texting me right now saying that they're hearing what we're talking about right now, so let's move on. Gary,
I have to have somebody come in and look at the system again.
So I'm watching you walk to your seat right now, Gary, so it must be working.
What's that?
I'm watching you walk to your
Okay,
seat,
all right,
so I'm
good.
guessing it's working.
All right, I'm Giuseppe Soroli, I live here in the township. My question is, if we're providing half of the money for the police department, do we have a people that we could put on the board, decide who the next police chief might be? Or what things might have to change? Or is the village still taking control over everything?
That would be for future discussion.
No,
Before we
if
go
I'm
with
given,
that.
if I'm given half of the money, I get half of the choices.
Today you don't.
You got a point well taken, and I agree, if we go that far, correct.
All right, I just want to make my voice, and I agree. When we had the sheriff out here, it sucked getting police protection or anybody to come out, with any period of time.
Thank you, sir.
Gary, Mike's comments, I agree with him 100%. A couple things there. One of them, this is only a one-year contract.
Correct.
We went from a 1 or a 3 down to a 1 now. Why, I don't know why that is. I don't know. I just agree with Mike there, and I will follow that.
The thing I don't understand, and I'd like to look at us as a community, and I know that's been controversial between the township and the village, and I don't quite understand why the village won't extend the contract. We're asking for a month. Our attorney suggested 90 days. We're asking for a month to hammer this thing out. We're so close. I hate to see us walk away over $50,000.
You could do it in a week.
Sir?
You could do it in a week.
Do
It doesn't take a month. Depends on how long an attorney would have to look at the contract revisions, but
The other thing too, Gary, I was gonna say is that, these police cars out here, they don't say Almont Village or Almont Township. I think we went through this years ago, that there was one that was marked Village and one that was marked Township. They're all the same. This is Almont. This is Almont's community here. So I think that the township's doing their part in this negotiation very fairly. I've talked to a lot of my neighbors around, explained to them, and they look at me like, you're what? And what are we getting for it? We're getting nothing extra. We're getting nothing extra.
Part of that, I understand. The other part of that is that the cost of doing business has gone up for all of us.
Absolutely, absolutely. The
So-
police officers got
Yeah,
14% raise and fine. But-
Be it that, be it insurance premiums, be it light, heat, water, it all adds up, but, I want us to have a police department, okay? And that's my feelings. The price of doing business is gonna go up again next year, and it's gonna go up again the following year. I don't see it going up as drastic as what the village has offered us this year. And I feel that if we did have a one-year contract, that gives us time to peel back that onion with the village, okay? But I'm not the king of the kingdom, I'm just throwing out my opinion. Dennis, you have thoughts?
It's just hard for me to look at a number. 44% increase, and like Mike said, you get the same stuff you get. 44% increase. No substantiating data to support that. And I totally agree with you, Gary. I don't know why we couldn't work this out through a contract extension on a monthly basis. They refused to do that. I really don't think they negotiated in good faith. We could have worked this out as a community. This is a hell of a challenge. We're up against a rock and a hard spot. I understand the township people are saying we want to work with the village police. The township board, a long time ago, identified for the negotiating committee. They gave us the guidelines that we want to retain village police in the township. And the guidelines was to try to negotiate that within a 2.25 no more village increase. We're really on the verge of failing to do that. We gave it our best shot, the three of us did. And now we got a number out there that we have no idea what that number represents. And we're up against a rock and a hard spot. I don't know that the township was telling the board, we want to retain village police in the township, but at any cost. I'm not sure that was the message. But 44% increase for the same, I'd agree with Mike. That's a challenge. And now we're up against a rock and a hard spot. As of Tuesday, we have no police coverage in the township. For $50,000, we can't come to terms. That's pretty poor for a community that can't work something like that out. So.
Can I?
Go ahead. Yep.
I jotted some notes down. There's a lot of thoughts running through everybody's head, and so it was just easier for me to jot it down. I've heard from a lot of people that I really respect. Sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't, and that's okay. For me, it's about response time, public safety, and building one community, and being fiscally responsible at the same time. Am I happy with this increase? Absolutely not. But this is a contract for 1 year only with the goal to start working on a better plan for police coverage with much more time available for us to accomplish that. Groceries have gone up, gas has gone up, propane has gone up, medical insurance, doctor visits, and prescriptions, but we still have to pay for those things. You call the police in an emergency. You need them to show up as fast as possible. If an elderly person is injured, if a child is hurt or missing, if a strange person is in your yard, if someone you don't know knocks on your door in the evening when it's dark, domestic violence in a home, if there is a farm accident, if there's an issue at the baseball fields, what if there's an issue at one of the schools? One liaison officer or an SRO might not be able and might not be enough to handle an emergency like that. We all hear stories of things that are awful that happen at schools. We have to give our community the benefit of providing the best opportunity for safety and well-being. My responsibility is to do the right thing for our community, and some decisions are harder to make than others. I know we will all be criticized for the decision that is made here, but that's part of this job. But I would rather be criticized for asking someone to pay $5, $10, or $20 a month more for local police coverage rather than be criticized for not doing the right thing at the expense of someone's life. It could be your husband, your wife, your mother, your dad, your son or your daughter, or your grandchild who needs help immediately. Those minutes can go by very slowly. I want the fastest response time, and I believe it would be the local Almont Police Department. Again, this is a 1-year contract with the goal to work on a better contract moving forward with much more time. And I did some math on this. We asked the assessor what the average taxable value is for 2025. It's $125,576. We normally collect 2 mills for the special assessment. That's about $250. If we increase it to 2.25 mills, that's $31 more a year. If we increase it to 2.5 mills, that's $62 more a year. So the average cost of a mill, or for 2 mills, the average cost would be $20.76. Average cost per month at 2.25 mills, $23 a day. Average cost per month at 2.5, $26. You're looking at an additional $250 a day for 2.25 mills, or $5 a day. I'm sorry, $5 a month for 2.5 mills, and $2.50 per month for 2.25. And I think that's worth it. Am I happy? No. But I think right now this is our best option, and I'd like to see us move forward so we can move on to looking at a different contract that really benefits us all in a better way. And I think that's real possible if we have that additional time.
Jenny, do you have anything?
I guess some people were asking about the SRO officer at the school. And I called the sheriffs, I talked to the secretary there. Yes, they do give us money towards that, but they only give us roughly, she said, $110,000. If we went with the county, from Gary, he said it was $157,000. So that's an extra $47,000 if we want the same coverage at the schools as we have now. If not, you're not going to get an officer at that school the full school days. Right now, the village covers that. That's part of ours. So if you do go to the county, that's another $47,000 that needs to be added on to cover the same coverage at the school. And I don't think anyone at the school is going to say, I don't want an officer there the entire school day every day. I worked at the school for a long time. The Raider down drills, everything that goes on, you don't think it'll happen in your community, but Oxford didn't think that either. So I'm not okay with not having a SRO officer there the entire school day. And that's an additional $47,000 on top of the amount you came up with. You said it was $825 through the sheriff's department.
Before they do the 30% discount that they give townships.
Correct, but I guess I can't come up with your number because
Which number are you struggling with?
the 825, because if it's
That number came from
157,
Gary.
but if it's 157,000 per officer,
Right.
5 officers is 785,000.
Okay.
You have to have 2 cars minimum. I just roughly guessed. I asked Gary, he said roughly 70,000 a car. I don't know if that's accurate exactly, but if that's the case, that's 140,000 for 2 cars. So you're at 925. With the 30% discount, you'd be down to 647.5, plus an additional 47 to cover that SRO officer at the school. So to me, I think the 650 from the village is not a horrible price.
So I guess the way I look at it, and again, this is just my opinion, we're raising our price 150,000. The village will essentially save about 100 over what they paid last year. That all that you've said and all that you've said can be easily accomplished if they're satisfied with 100,000 savings. They want more. And the more is the part I can't justify. We're going up 150. All that you're talking about can be made true if the village agreed to settle the deal. If they don't, sure, you can.
But I'm saying the county's like the same price or more. We don't know that that amount is not in writing.
So it's 5 officers
Yes.
is what they're quoting. Okay, that's a swag. What we've been talking about is to get 24/7 coverage, 365 days, 4.2 officers.
How do you have a .2 officer?
You're talking coverage hours. It's coverage hours.
I understand that, but what if
That's all it
someone's on
is.
vacation or
4.7
someone's sick?
if you include vacation and sick days. You have to use coverage hours. You multiply that by the hourly rate, you come up with a number. We were fine with that number. And we were fine with, I think where it went off tracks was the presumption that we are somehow 65% of the activity. And I verified today, looking at it, we're 42% of the activity.
But
So
if the village has okay, so the sheriff department, you have one officer 24/7.
mhm.
There's an accident at Dryden and Van Dyke. Who's coming to cover the accident that happens 10 minutes later at Huff Road and Van Dyke?
It's what you have now.
The Almont police are gonna come and cover that.
Right now, you pay for 24/7 coverage. They
Right,
would be
but they're
giving you the
not,
same
but
level.
the Almont police aren't gonna say, oh, you only have one officer, we're not gonna go there. The sheriff's department, yes, I'm not saying they won't come here, but how long are you gonna wait?
None of that, I don't disagree. I'm the one from the beginning who said we want to keep the Almont Police Department, but not at any cost. That's why you negotiate. Otherwise, we could go all the way to 3%, and my God, we don't need 15 officers. I'm not convinced that we have to add 3 or 4 more officers. I personally think we have pretty good coverage where we're at. I don't know that I know they want to add another sergeant. I don't know that we needed another sergeant. Those are the things that I question. Is like, okay, we're adding stuff. Do we really need it? Do we have a spending problem or do we have a cost problem? It's began to look like a spending problem to me. I just say you can have all the things that we're talking about, but we don't have to increase the costs so dramatically. And
But if you go to
I don't know that I'm
county,
getting
cost
anything.
is gonna be the same, that's what I'm saying. Like,
We haven't
I
really
don't-
sat and talked to the sheriff. I can tell you what Marathon pays. Okay, they pretty much the same size as us. They've got 4 officers. They're paying about $520 a year with the sheriff. But you have to sit down and you have to talk to them.
That's with the discount.
Yeah, with the discount. They apply a 30% discount to that when they put that contract out.
That's my problem, is we have nothing in writing, that is not guaranteed.
We don't
So-
have nothing in writing about what you're saying they're
Well-
charging. It's none of that conversation is really taking place.
Right, so how do you know it's not gonna be
I
975,000?
I don't, but I know this one is going to be high.
It's a 1-year contract, and I'm not willing to, I guess this is just my opinion, and you can agree to disagree. I'm not willing as a citizen and our community members to not have police coverage for up to 6 months to get the sheriff to come out. And that's just my opinion. That's how I stand. I think, looking at the numbers, to me, it's a fair deal.
And what if the village says, no, we are not interested in doing business with you at the offer that you have made, and they are done? Where do we
Make it
sit then?
work.
Then
There's a
we
way
are
to make it
done.
work. There's a way to make it work. I can't go into details on how you do that, but there's a way to make it work. If we would
I
have
don't,
if we'd have had 1 week to sit down, 1 meeting, everybody would have walked away happy. We'd have stayed at the millage rate that we proposed and we could walk away happy. And that's verified and that was checked out today. But we don't have time to do that because they don't want to negotiate again. So I'm stuck.
so you feel that they would have come to where our offer was?
I think both
Phil-
would have walked away happy.
Well, it seems to me no one is happy right now.
You got that right.
Well,
They were not interested
I'm
in
gonna
our
stick my
No.
neck out.
They were not even interested in it.
I'm gonna stick my neck
It
out.
wasn't negotiated. Nothing was negotiated.
Okay. I'm gonna make a motion that we pay the $650. Okay? I also, as part of that motion, will request that we sit down with the village. Village attorney has to look at the intergovernmental agreement. Dale, you and I talked about that. I got that back today. That's part of my motion, okay, to pay them the $650. I come from a public safety background through my father, through my brother, through myself. I'm an advocate of public safety. I don't want to leave this township without police patrol or protection. If the board votes it down, we're back to square one. The board approves it, at least we have a police department for another year, which gives us time to better the relationship between us, I guess, and the village council. And it is my belief that we are one community, and I would strive to endorse that into the future and improve on the relationship. We're not trying to get away with anything. I would hope that the village isn't trying to get away with anything. But for $50,000, I do not want to leave the citizens in a lurch. And here we are on 4th of July weekend, talking about walking away from police protection, and I'm not in favor of that. So my motion is on the table.
What millage rate are you attaching to that?
That's a separate thing. We have to have
That's a
the
separate-
public hearing first.
Right, that will be handled under item number 2 on the agenda. Jenny, did you get that motion?
I'll support it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor with support.
So, because you made the motion, can you pass your gavel?
Pass the gavel
Someone?
to
To someone?
Kimberly.
Okay.
And we'll ask for a roll call vote on that.
Okay.
Can you read the motion back?
Well, what I got. Moved by, to pay $650,000 for a 1-year contract to the Almont Village for police protection, with sitting down with the village with an agreement to go over the contract with the lawyers. To that effect. It's not word for word. I have to rewatch the video. That was a lot of words. Okay, so roll call.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have to, I hope we can negotiate with the village, but we haven't seen that this far, so I'm skeptical. We will accomplish with your motion, if it goes through, of maintaining police protection starting July 1st in the township. But I think we're gonna be sitting in the same chairs a year from now.
Hopefully we can approve that.
Any other board discussion?
So
Okay.
my share of the discussion, without knowing what the millage rate is going to be, it's very difficult to do that. That's kind of a blank check. I have no problem if everybody wants to talk about the 650. I would probably still say, no, I think it's too high. But my concern is more with the millage rate that we're going to impose on the taxpayers. If we're holding the millage rate at 2.25, we should be able to go talk. If it's going to be fully supported by a 2.5 millage, that just, to me, is too much for some people. That's a lot of money.
Well, I didn't make that part of the motion, Mike, because we have to open the public hearing on the millage rate. Okay,
So if I vote no, understand why, without knowing how it's going to get paid for. It's hard.
no repercussions from it.
I know. It's hard to if I don't know how we're paying for it.
I understand. Okay, anything else? All right, roll call vote, please.
Grosbeck,
Yes.
Henneke, yes. Swears,
Yes.
Eschenberg,
No.
Chris,
No.
Streeter.
Yes. Motion passed.
Okay, motion is
I will
approved.
hand the gavel back.
Okay. Second item on the agenda is that we're going to reopen the public hearing on the special assessment for the police department. Time on it, Jenny?
7:33.
Okay, the public meeting, public hearing is open. Any opening statements from anybody? It's a public hearing. Paula?
Is better today? No. Okay.
I find it's amazing that everything, like you say, you're stuck against a wall. Is this something that just come up within 5 days? Has this contract just been presented?
Opening question was on May 6th from Dale Ferguson to myself, whether we intended on renewing the contract. Okay? And I responded within the hour that we would. Then I walked over to Mr. Kirby's office and I said, we need to put together negotiating committees, which we did. But that all began on May 6th.
Okay. What I find here is 90% of the people in this building were from Almont, except Dale Currison. He's making decisions for this community. And what I'm hearing from the other day is that there's statements, nobody can come up with the numbers. He's saying 60% of the time we have a township officer, and somebody said 35% of the time, somebody else said 40-some%. You can't even agree on that number, and yet we're gonna hand over money to them. And don't get me wrong, I love our police department. We have used them, I respect them, we need them. But we don't need somebody putting your back to the wall and saying, I'm not gonna do it. So I think negotiation, and there is anybody who would not negotiate this is not professional at all, and he doesn't deserve his job.
Appreciate your comments. Anything else from the public? Leo?
Taxpayer in the community. I've been a law enforcement officer here for over 37 years. And Kim, what you said certainly encapsulates my concerns. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's unfortunate that we're putting money over life safety issues. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, one of the most critical components is response time. And Mr. Chris, you're driven by data, but the data is driven by money. Your focus appears to be only on money, not response time. Response time makes a difference between life and death, countless times. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we're all trained in CPR. We have AEDs with us. 99% of the time, we're the first ones on the scene for a medical. And also a fire, where we can give a size up to the responding fire department, or God forbid if there's someone inside a building and we can safely enter. And maybe there's times that we go in when it's not safe to extricate someone out from dying from a fire. Response time is critical. And then the second thing I'd like to know, can I get a copy of the data that shows that only 42% of the activity?
9 months of Clemis data. If you ask the chief, he'll show you the Clemis report.
Do you have a copy of it where I can get a copy of that? I'd like to see that if I could.
I
please.
may have the most recent month,
Okay,
It's an average.
but we get it from the chief, so honestly.
I'll get it from him then.
Yeah,
Okay,
he'll
I'm sorry.
have it
Thank you.
all, but
And then the other thing I wanted to mention, you're using Marathon Township as an example. You said 5 officers is X amount of dollars. And I don't know all the nuances with that, if that's 24/7, if they have a car in Marathon Township, do they cover for vacations? Do they cover for sick time? Where you always have an officer in the car or in the community? Do they even provide electricity, they provide a building, they provide a car? All these nuances are involved that have to be taken into consideration if you want to continue to provide top-notch professional life safety law enforcement services to the community. And the other thing is, somebody mentioned that the police department got a 14% increase through the collective bargaining agreement. We were the lowest paid in the county. So now that brings us up comparable, but we're still below at 14%. It's no different than UAW employees get an increase, or some of the people who work full-time in our community, be it in the township or in other entities, get a raise. So why is it not acceptable to have a negotiated agreement where now we're not even comparable with Dryden or Metamora, even though we're busier because of Van Dyke, but it's not the point of the raise. It's almost like you're criticizing us because we have an increase.
no, at no point, and I
Okay.
made that crystal clear, and I'm
I'm
going
not
to
saying
correct the
you, I'm
record.
not saying you.
There is no challenge whatsoever.
I just wanted to clarify that. 14%
So let
is
me ask you
now
a couple of
comparable.
questions.
And the other thing I wanted to ask is this. We have in our community several subject matter experts when it comes to contract law enforcement services. Why aren't those people being tapped into and asked for feedback, professionalism? If you're going to build a house Or better yet, if I'm gonna farm a field, maybe I'll ask Randy, because I don't know anything about it. I can drive a John Deere, but I don't know all the nuances involved in it. I would go to a subject matter expert. And I'd like to know how many people on the board have reached out to law enforcement professionals, PhDs, or other communities. Here's what we have, this is what the cost is. And lastly, I'm gonna say this. The village police department provides services, as we all know, for the village and the township. If the county takes over, Almont Village has no jurisdiction in the schools, that's in the township. And would the parents and the teachers really be content with a part-time SRO with everything that's going on in our world today? Those are the questions that need to be asked. And to go back to what Gary said, $50,000. Yeah, I'm a taxpayer. I'm frugal, also called cheap at times, but you have to put life safety ahead of it. This isn't about a profit for the village. It's about cost sharing, reasonable cost sharing. And I, for one, as a taxpayer, am glad that you're moving forward with the 650. And in the process, try and work something out. Oh, there is something else I wanted to mention. 650, what was the number when you started out with? I've heard that the village is not negotiating. You've mentioned that several times. What was the number when you?
$749,700.
Okay, so almost $100,000 the village has come down. So I don't think it's fair to say they're not negotiating if they've come down almost 100,000.
We were at
Those are the
450.
facts.
We were at 450. But let me answer a couple of your questions. I reached out and I talked to professionals. I talked to the chief in Imlay City, I talked to the chief in Dryden, and I talked to the officers in Romeo. Do you know how many officers they have that cover Romeo and Bruce Township? They have a total of 9.
Are you saying that Romeo officers going to Bruce Township?
No, they have a sheriff officer. That
Exactly.
covers Imlay City and Imlay Township. There's a total of 11. Imlay Township has 1 sheriff officer. I go to Dryden. Dryden has a total for the Dryden Village and Dryden Township of 5 officers. So in my head, and again, I don't do this for a living. Those are kind of my benchmarks to say, okay, is it reasonable to look at a contract that suggests that we need a total of 15 people when these other departments have 5 or 8 or 11?
They're asking for 15 people.
That's the $759,000 contract that we were given, was to take all the part-time officers, make them all full-time.
That's not accurate.
I'm
a part-time officer. There's no effort to make me full-time.
Let me show you that is the offer sheet, and what it called for, it had 15 people, a full-time admin secretary, filling the part-time officer, 3 other part-time officers, 2 vacant full-time officers that they wanted to fill, and a full-time sergeant. In a perfect world, we want a chief, a lieutenant, 2 sergeants, 10 full-time officers, and a full-time admin secretary. I didn't make up that sheet. That's the sheet we were given, and that seemed excessive. Because that's a lot more than you have now. Right now, today, I think you have 5 full-time officers. We take the SRO out because the county pays $110,000. The cost of an officer is $97,000. You get to keep the difference. That's fine.
Well, the county gets their money from our taxes. That we pay that
Exactly,
increase.
but you can't double dip.
Right.
If we pay it to them, they give it to you, we can't pay it again. But right now, what you have is 5 full-time officers and 3 part-time officers. And everybody's very happy with that level of coverage, and it kind of lined up with what the other officers were, or the other forces were saying. So I don't want you to think we were just looking at money. If they would have all come back and said, yeah, that's a deal. That's a perfect number. That's optimum. I would have said, well, okay, I don't know much about it. It sounds right. It didn't. So I look at data and I make decisions based on it. Shame on me that I'm an engineer. That's the way I do things. I can't help it.
Well, I don't think at any time during our discussions with the village, anybody argued about the cost of the officers. They do a great job.
Not at
We
all.
always agreed that the 14%, I wouldn't do their job for 14% more. But there was this $168,000 that was for stuff. All we want to know is, what's that stuff? Nobody argued about the officers. We leave that up to the chief to get the staffing levels that he sees, the professionals like you. But that $168,000 mystery money is is what we wanted a little more definitive answers to.
And
You guys
with,
do a great job, and we support the 14%. Like I said, I wouldn't do your job.
so we were gonna pay for 4.2 officers, which is just a mathematical hour summary. And we were told we had to pay for our own sergeant. Now, you've got to pay for half the chief, half the admin, and for a full-time sergeant to watch 4 guys. Again, that didn't seem right. It really didn't. So please, don't think we were picking. Nobody questioned how much you were getting for a raise. Nobody questioned the quality of the service. Nobody said we were getting a bad deal in terms of coverage. It was trying to make sense of the numbers and say, okay, am I giving the taxpayers a fair shake, or am I just throwing up my hands saying, oh, you know what, I don't want to be bothered with these figures. The figures were telling me you need to at least look at it. So,
Well, it's just unfortunate that some people in this room voted no on the 1-year extension. The contract expires on June 30th. If we don't have police protection, the residents in this community are going to be placed in jeopardy. And that's the bottom line. Who's going to respond to Boardman and Van Dyke if there's an accident? Who's going to respond up to Ross in Van Dyke? Who's going to respond to anywhere outside the village? I mean, we're running out of time. And a gentleman asked, or I think Paul asked, when did negotiations started? And Gary, you said in May. So here we are, at the end of June, we're running out of time. I don't want to see anybody in our community,
I don't either.
residents or people visiting, placed in jeopardy because of a disagreement over money. And the last thing I'm going to say, I know I said that before, but Dennis, you had mentioned they started out at $749, and now we're down to $650. So there has been some movement. Let's not allow money to stop us from at least continuing police protection for another year while you can sit down and negotiate the nuances or what have you to reach some type of amicable agreement and continue to provide the citizens of our community the services that they deserve and they're entitled to.
I would share that same sentiment with the village board, because we're more than willing to sit down and figure it out. The money argument goes both ways.
Thank you for the clarification and thank you for the information. Thank you for your time.
Also, just one thing
Yeah.
that I would like to say. This whole money thing here, I want it to make it work, okay? I have met with the chief 3 times. He assured me that if this board came up with a number, that he would make it work. I believe he would. I believe he would. But he wasn't included in any of this at all. And I don't know why. Why couldn't he have been included into it? It would have worked. We wouldn't be there. And our meeting that we had on Tuesday, I suggested to move it from 2.0 to 2.25. This board, we had 7 members here then, and they all voted for it Tuesday. Okay? We were confident on that number.
We didn't vote on 2.25. What do you mean?
It was a suggestion that we came up with.
We made a suggestion, but we didn't vote on that.
There was a roll call vote, I believe, that everybody voted.
Not
It was
for,
$600,000.
yeah, the 600, not for 2.25.
Okay, well, it was, yeah, we didn't mention that.
This is the
But it was
public hearing right
600,000,
now.
which generated 590 and then 10. So I just wanted to make that comment, but I feel that if the chief would have been involved with what he told me, that whatever number we agreed upon would have worked. So.
Thanks, Leo.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
Brian?
Hi, Brian Zender, County Commissioner, lifelong resident of Almont. Jenny, you have some numbers wrong. The SRO, the county pays back to the, providing source of the SRO, $110,000. The cost of an officer is $150 something for the year. The SRO would not work in the summer. They wouldn't work those hours.
I'm just giving you what I got an email from the sheriff's
So-
department.
So the number for the SRO is kind of wrong.
Okay,
The other municipalities that contract with the sheriff's department, and some of them, they actually provide the SRO for, they just provide it. They don't get the 110,000. The sheriff's department just keeps that to pay for that officer.
she did say, yeah, she did say that.
So it would not
She
be
told
another
me the
40-some thousand dollars. That's what I'm
Well,
saying.
you have a good point. I didn't take in consideration.
And again,
summer.
I got nothing against the Almont Township Police Department. And quite frankly, I mean, I don't really, it doesn't really matter to me one way or another what you guys do. As far as if you contract with the sheriff, but this not having a response time or whatever, I would assume that you would have the sheriff based, that officer would be based right here.
Well, my thing was the response time of that officer that is based right here because we only have one. What's the response time for a second accident?
You have mutual aid with all the other communities that everybody has.
But
Right now,
what's the response time for that? You know what I mean? It's not the same as being directly in here. In
Almont Village isn't going to do mutual aid.
Steven is shaking his head no over
Steven's
there.
shaking his head no, I don't.
I don't know.
It takes over a year to set up a mutual aid contract for the township, which they need to go and negotiate with each and every community. It is not in place. We have a mutual aid contract with other communities. You do not. You would have to go and set it up. It would take you a year. That's not accurate.
The county does not have a mutual aid agreement?
After we talked about it, is mutual aid provided? We have a mutual aid contract with other communities. You do not.
Does the sheriff?
What's that?
Does the sheriff?
Of course he does.
Because that's who our officer would be.
Does the township have a mutual aid contract?
If the
with
sheriff
all the other departments?
is our agent.
If the
and they
sheriff is
have
your agent,
a mutual
you get
agreement.
one officer.
Pardon?
If the sheriff is your agent, you get your one officer, right? That's what we're talking
Which is
about.
what we get from the
You get your one
township.
officer. So her question is, what happens when you need a second? And he's saying
We-
that the fill-in is mutual aid, but you don't have a mutual aid contract.
If we contract with the
The sheriff's
sheriff,
department, I assure you, has a mutual.
he
aid
has a
contract.
mutual aid agreement. And we get one officer now. We're paying for 4.2, but it's only one officer, 24/7, 365. So whatever we would have, I think we would have with the
That's what your
sheriff.
costs for patrol, so it's kind of apples to oranges. It's
Well,
not realistic.
And mutual aid is for life-saving events. It's not going to be because the neighbor's dog is
That would
barking.
be an emergency type run.
Yeah.
Just the personality types of police officers. They're not gonna sit here and let some other police officer out there with his shirt tails hanging out on an emergency run, okay? So irregardless of a mutual aid agreement.
So,
I just have to ask, if we have a contract with the village police services, and they have a mutual aid agreement, I would assume that applies to the townships because we contract with the village.
In that circumstance,
That's
yes.
correct.
We wouldn't have to negotiate a mutual aid agreement as the township because we don't have a police department.
so, I mean, a lot of this, like I say, just the
If you have a contract with us, yes.
We have a contract with.
the myth that the people would not be serviced, I think is wrong. I mean,
understand.
and I agree. I mean, I think we should keep the Almont Township Police Department if at all possible. But, what's going to happen? Why would they only do a 1-year contract? Why won't they do a 3?
We were assured that the costs were going to go up next year, and that's why they wanted to only go to 1 year.
It's kind of your answer
I mean,
then.
that's what we were told, because we said, well, why isn't this 3 year? Let's come up with something so we don't have to do this again every year. Said, no,
So-
it's 1
so-
year, because I'm sure the costs will be higher next year. Okay.
So then you're going to go to the voters and ask for 2.75 or 3?
That's the slippery slope we're trying to avoid. Because you could see it coming.
Thanks, Craig.
Yep.
Anything else?
I have one quick question.
Yes,
Does
sir.
anybody know how much the village is paying for the police?
This year,
Yeah.
I think they paid roughly 600,000.
So they're asking us to pay more.
If you kept the coverage exactly what you had now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Their plan was that they presented was they wanted to
Well, if
hire
they're
the 3
paying less
additional
money
officers.
than we are, then we should control the police department.
It's not our police department.
Well, why not?
That's beyond my pay grade. I didn't make that decision.
Oh, wait a second. If I'm paying the majority of the bill,
Mhm.
I should have the majority of the say.
I don't disagree.
We've got a year, sir, to work on that at this point.
Well, why don't we just tell them, if you want the 650,000, we want 50% of the say what goes on with the police department and how the money is spent. Is that even feasible?
Sounds reasonable. We'll work on it. Thank you.
All right, so Stephen Schneider, Village Council member. I'd like to definitely clarify some things. One, you have never paid 50% of the costs, ever, under any circumstances. Have you ever paid 50% of the
Didn't
costs?
say we were.
It's a 1.5, this is public comment, so it is my opportunity to talk, so give me just a moment. I don't mind going back and forth, but at least let me finish my point. $1.5 million budget for fiscal year for the next year. That's why we asked for 750. That would have been 50%. I don't agree with your math at all, sir, as to how you have looked at 9 months of data and then decided what that is over a 12-month period. To me, it's pseudoscience, but even to take that as fact, you said that you believe if you remove the SRO, right? If you remove the SRO time, it brought it down to what percentage?
I didn't.
You said
I
it
didn't do
brought
that.
the activity. You did not believe that it was 65%. You said if you remove the SRO, it brought it down to
Yes,
what?
if you go to the Clemis report, you add up total
9
hours
months,
spent.
yes.
And you subtract out the
Mhm.
hours that are attributable to serving the school by the SRO.
Sure.
Okay,
It
which
brought it down to what percentage?
about 41.
Do you know what? Well, I thought you said it was closer to 42, but let's just put it this.
I redid it
What
again
is
after the last meeting.
650,000 of 1.5 million? What is 650,000 of 1.5 million? It's 42%. It's 42%. It's paying for the exact coverage that by your own math, you're saying that you use. There has been so much pseudo math and arguments that are apples to oranges during this entire conversation. The concept of we pay 50%, so we should get a seat at the table. That's not how this works. Even village council doesn't get a seat at the table necessarily, right? Village council has a village manager. The village manager serves at the pleasure. That's the only control we get is over our village manager. Village manager is in control of the department heads, which would include the chief of police. The chief of police is in control of the department. A seat at what table, guys? What table? There isn't a table to take a seat at. And again, on top of it, why then do village people not get a seat at the table for the fire department? We pay 50%, we pay towards it. This is not a reasonable or factual way to approach this. If we are all one community, I don't understand why paying the exact percentage by your own math, which by the way, I don't agree with, because again, it's 9 months. And just like you pointed out, the SRO does not work year round. So what do you think happens to that officer during the summertime? Do you think we terminate him? He just doesn't come in? He's a full-time village officer. So this is all a little bit of pseudoscience, pseudo-math, and these arguments don't make sense. And I've heard a lot of arguments about the fact that the village will not negotiate. Well, again, we did start at $750,000. We came down to $673,000. Why? Because we made several concessions at the negotiating committee's request, right? Okay, so the negotiating committee met a maximum of 2 times. Began in the beginning of May, is when it was starting to be discussed. We put the committees together. You have not met since the first week of June, guys. You never asked for another meeting. You didn't even ask for one. You're saying we refused to come to the table, but you didn't even ask or come or even make an offer until 2 days ago. This board made an offer 2 days ago. You're saying you ran out of time. I understand that, but you didn't take any action during that time period. There was an awful lot of finger pointing. We would have come back to the table and continued to have a conversation, but we did make concessions. And again, I don't agree about the activity, but that was also one of the first problems at your first committee meeting, correct? Your first subcommittee meeting and to negotiate this, you don't want to talk activity, you want to talk man hours instead. You want to go to 4.2, which I can't give you 0.2 of a human being. You need 5 officers. So you didn't want to do that. You wanted to look at man hours instead. You wanted to look at what the cost was. And you're right. You need to pay for a chief. You need to have command staff. So you got to have a sergeant and you got to have your 4 officers. And we took away a bunch of the costs that whether you pay for them or not, they will exist, which means in order to properly staff the department, give it the equipment it needs, give it the new computers it needs, give it all of the things it actually needs, the things that unquestionably the township residents will receive the benefit of, the village has to pay for it. The village must subsidize the township's policing. That is the reality of that circumstance. And we don't want to do that at the village anymore. Continue to subsidize township police coverage. That is not fair and it isn't accurate. And on top of it, are we ignoring the fact that you guys have a very significant fund balance from this very same millage, or this very same special assessment that you have?
We don't.
You don't. I'm sorry. Are you guys not audited annually like all of these municipalities? We don't know what the fund balance is?
So
police
on
fund?
that audit, the problem, I talked to Dale about this. So on that audit, yes, we have a fund balance at the end of the year because that special assessment is on our winter tax bill. So that has to cover us until December. So there's always a big balance at
Sure.
the end of our
It's
year. audit
accumulated
year.
taxpayer funds that you can use towards paying this very same number we're discussing.
Right, but we don't collect any more until December. So
Sure.
that's why there's always
Sure.
a fund balance in
but,
there.
But it's not as if the $650,000 that is being discussed and voted on, which by the way, I truly appreciate that you guys did come up to the level that we're accepting that through gritted teeth as well. You know, I spend a lot of my time working in very difficult litigation cases, and I believe I said this to Ms. Streeter as well before. The reality is that if you guys walk away unhappy and we walk away unhappy, then we've probably made a pretty decently fair deal because we both had to give up a lot of things that we did not want to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not happy about this deal. You're not happy about this deal. You know who will be? All of the residents of our community, because they're going to have police coverage.
So can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
So you're 1.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What we were arguing about is we said, you know what, you're including hiring 3 new officers and upgrading a sergeant. All right?
We had 2 before, we're down to 1. We've been down to 1 for a while.
Been down to 1 for a while. We were fine with that. And we said, you know what, we will pay the $408,000 for the officers. We'll pay for that. We'll pay for 42% of the chief. We'll pay for 42% of a sergeant. We'll pay for 42% of the admin, and we'll pay 42% of the capital. And you know what we were told at the last negotiation session? It's going to cost you $673,000 for coverage, take it or leave it. That was it. If you do the math, and I'd love to sit in a room and do math with you because we could probably come up with the answer. I love doing that stuff. But if you add those figures up, you'll find out that it comes out to $600,000.
So
Because I can tell you that the chief, plus the sergeant, plus the admin, plus those officers, plus 42% of the capital expenditure, without putting the numbers out there about what people make, you'll come out with 600. They'll come out with 602,000, close enough. That was the offer that we gave. So when you come in and you float a 1.75 million budget, drop it down to 1.5, do I have assurance from the village you will hire 3 more officers and promote a sergeant and buy all the equipment that was on there? I don't know, but I'm being forced to pay for it right now. We said shed the stuff that's all the extra stuff. And can we just look at what's left? It was roughly $1,250,000. We said, all right, 42% of that. Now let's do the math. Why don't you help me out with that? What would that be? It'd be about 600,000. So we hit it 2 different ways. And we said,
Go ahead.
this is how we kept coming back to the number. And we said, you know, if we had a reason to believe that we're way off, we'd have done it. But we tried it. We came at it from so many different approaches. And we said, my God, this doesn't seem right. Now, I know we can make it work. I know for a fact that we know exactly what it would take to make it work. And
then why didn't you ask for a meeting?
Hmm?
Then why didn't you ask for a meeting?
We did. We were told there's no extent. Next week is.
Well, no, hold on,
4th of July.
wait a minute. You're telling me that your negotiating committee asked for a meeting with our negotiating committee? Because that was never passed along.
We asked
not
for
once.
an extension because
Oh, no. So
he's
wait a
gone
minute.
next week. I'm gone next week.
That's
We
not
should
the
give us
same
an
thing, sir.
extension.
That's not the same thing. You asked for an extension, not for a meeting to negotiate.
Mr. Snyder, with all due respect, and Mike, we're getting off the crux of the public hearing on the special assessment.
Okay.
All right, we've been through the contract, you got your contract. Appreciate your comments. I want to move on and discuss the actual special assessment for the police coverage, but thank you.
I appreciate all the time you guys have put in. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to say something, Mr. Snyder. I appreciate.
Go ahead, Leo. If it relates to the assessment.
To negotiate in good faith
Thank you.
in this coming year.
I absolutely mean it.
I hope so.
Mr. Chris, you had mentioned that there was a 30%, 35% discount that the county would offer for,
So 9 of the townships that have sheriff coverage, there is a 30% discount that is applied by the county for that coverage.
Mr. Zender,
That's on the 9 contracts that are out there right now.
Yeah, Mr. Zender, here you spoke as part of the county board of commissioners. Does the county board of commissioners plan on continuing that discount?
They have for years and years.
Do they plan on continuing that discount? So that's on the record now that the county board of commissioners is going to continue that discount for all contract communities in the county.
The contract discount in that they are providing now.
Yeah.
Is X number of dollars. Okay? It's divided up 9 ways. So it works out to 30%, 32%, 35%, whatever the number is. Okay? And that's the discount that has been given to these municipalities for years and years and years. I'm not saying that the county is going to add to that number, okay? You know, that would be up to the rest of the commission.
Right.
But I would assume that you would take that and divide it 10 ways if they went with the sheriff's department. And then everybody would get a little bit less for this.
Just trying to get some definitive numbers, and I want to know, is the county board of commissioners, as far as you know tonight, going to continue that discount for these contract communities?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Leo.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, it's my opinion, I guess, reference the special assessment for police coverage.
Very close to the public hearing.
Yes, we'll close the public hearing.
8:06.
Everybody done?
For anyone
All
who
the-
doesn't know.
Okay, everybody good? All right.
Yes, doesn't matter.
Thank you. You had a comment? You had a comment?
John, you want to say
Come
something?
on.
Okay.
The one thing I will say though, I think it's nice that the township doesn't put you on the communist clock. These gentlemen had good stuff. They had good stuff to say. They really did, and that is nice, and I hope every board in here will give respect to what people have to say. And I think everybody had very good stuff to put in. You know, ladies, I get it. I know when I walked in my son's room and he didn't wake up, yes, that response time is there. But there's also been so many games played in this community the last couple of years. I'm thinking we're still having trust issues. And when it comes down to bare numbers, yes, I am with you guys. Just because there's trust issues. I know what it's like to be in negotiations. I know what it's like to lose. I know what it's like to come in, have your pay cut, and be told, hey, guess what? You're doing 3 jobs today. I get it. There was a lot of good stuff on the floor. It's a lot of stuff to take in.
Appreciate your comments, John.
And we can barely get the camera and the microphones to work. There's no way we could get that clock to work, so I doubt that would ever happen.
I just think it's good. I mean, you sit here watching and go, hey, this is good stuff, you know?
Closing at 8:08 now.
Okay, public hearing closed at 8:08. Special assessment for police coverage, the number that's been discussed is 2.25. Currently, it was 2.25 some years ago. It was reduced down to 2. I'm not sure what the mechanics were behind that. We're looking at possibly raising it to 2.25. I'll open the discussion to the board. If anybody's got any questions, comments, concerns, now's the time. Entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve a special assessment millage for 2.25 mils for police coverage for the 2025-2026 fiscal year.
Support. Any further discussion, questions, comments, concerns?
Read that motion back, please.
To approve a special assessment millage for 2.25 mils for police coverage for the 2025-2026 fiscal year.
Okay, we we have a motion on the floor with support. Any further questions, comments, concerns from the board?
What? No, sorry, Randy.
Okay, we're going to roll call vote.
Streeter,
Yes.
Grosbeck,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Eschenberg,
Yes.
Hennigy, yes, and Swears.
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved. Next order of business is park board budget, and I'm going to refer that to you, Kimberly.
Yep, we need to get this done by the end of the year. So we've talked about it in previous meetings. So unless anybody has any questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve the park board budget as presented.
What was,
The number.
yeah,
What's
what
the
was the number?
Same number as the information everybody had prior.
So last year it was how much?
The,
You
it was,
look at the township
right,
contribution.
I think we were at 17.5
Last year?
for this year's
12.5
contribution.
last
So
year.
12.5 last year, so you're asking for a
For
$5,000
$5,000 more.
increase.
Yes.
Did somebody propose a motion on that?
I did.
Kimberly made the motion, and Jenny supported it, I believe. Any further discussion?
So we're at 17.5.
17.5.
No further discussion? Roll call vote.
So I will have a little bit of discussion.
Oh,
Okay.
So there was some back and forth, and I'm going to say this, and I'd love to hear what the audience says. Depending on who cuts the lawn at the park dictates how much it costs to do that. Those are DPW workers. The DPWs are funded by a millage in the village, okay? And that is one of the expenses that the 17.5 covers. So everything that we essentially pay or that we contribute to the park offsets a cost that is being incurred by the park for DPW workers to do that work. That's part of it. That was troubling to me. Okay, it really was. I have no problem if they want new swing sets, come in, give us a capital plan, tell us this is what we're going to do, here's the timeline, here's the bids. They usually always get approval. I have no problem if there's an identified issue and we have to support that. I'm not clear what the additional 5,000 is going to be for, other than the fact that you have a DPW staff who, when they aren't working on the park, can work on other things. And they're paid to do that. They are paid. The DPW staff is paid to take care of the village's property. And when they cut that lawn, I know they allocate the time to that, which is good management. You want to know where your people are spending the time, what departments are using resources and so forth. That all makes sense. But again, our township money is going to pay for something that the village residents have already paid for, which essentially frees up DPW funding to just go do other things. And that triangle, again, I look at too much data, and I'm always trying to make sure we're not paying for stuff that we don't get value for. 12.5 is what we've always contributed. I was comfortable with that. Raising it for 5 and not knowing exactly what I was doing other than putting money on the table, I struggle with that. So that's my comment.
Understood. And the fact that we are micromanaging the amount of grass cutting time that really is funded by a portion of an additional $5,000 by the DPW, I find a little comical.
I don't. It's $5,000. It's
Well,
not
we
my
wanna-
money. It's their money, not mine.
We spent $14,000 on metal sheds at the ball fields.
Yes, we did.
And the park is it is a great place. And it certainly should be able to be funded by the residents of our community. It is a $5,000 increase.
It's our
It
ball
is-
field. It's our ball field. We pay for all the lawn cutting at that ball field. We pay
Correct.
for the rolling. We pay for all the maintenance, and we don't ask the village to reimburse us for that. We contract that and pay for it. And I love the park. I think it's a great place. Seems to me that we're already paying to support that park, and we're raising it. And in light of all the conversations we've had tonight, that alone would be enough for me to question it. But I don't know if we're getting any additional value other than there's more money there.
Well, I'll give you a little information I just received tonight. Apparently there was some vandalism in one of the bathroom, the men's bathroom was damaged. So then now the DPW is a part of that repair. So the $5,000 that we put in, I mean, I know you've brought up the grass cutting numerous times. Let's try to get off that. They do a great many things. They open the bathrooms in the morning. They shut them down. They clean. They pick up. They're a constant there. They do what needs to be done. There is value to that. And we have not increased their funding for a long time. And I think that we should. So that is my motion. I hear your thoughts. And I have made my motion.
Mike, I can assure you that your questions have been heard by the park board. Those guys do a great job. They're all volunteers, but they're asking the same questions to monitor where that money is going. There is a list of things that need to be done out there at the park. It's probably a page and a half long, and it's going to cost money to do it. So we've generated some interest on the park board to try to watch where that money is going. So
would they be able to come back to this board and say, hey, we have a punch list of items
if they have a
that
punch list.
we have to do this, and we need.
Desired if they can, and they try to negotiate contracts. They try to get the wood chips and stuff for paint this and wash that and do all that kind of stuff. These volunteers do a great job. They go out of the way, but I think what you've done is you've generated the park board's interest every.
Yeah. Well, I guess the way I look at it, Kim, and the reason it bothers me is there's an O&M expense, operations and maintenance, which is this is what it takes to keep the place running the way it's running. And then there's capital expenditures, which are the one time we're going to buy a new swing set or whatever. Capital, I think we've been very good on. Going to this $5,000 increase is forever because nobody's going to take it away. So it means you've gone up from 12.5 to 17.5 and it's in perpetuity forever. And I don't have something that tells me that there's going to be value delivered forever. I have maybe a 1-year punch list. Well, that might be accomplished with a one-time payment. But I can promise you there's nobody on this board, and I've learned a lot about this board, that is going to say next year, we don't need to give 17.5. Let's take it back to 12.5. So once you go up, it's there. So that's my concern.
Noted.
Okay. Anything else? All right, we have a motion on the floor with support. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
Aye.
Opposed or abstain?
Opposed, right?
Yeah. Opposed.
Okay. Motion is approved.
You abstained, Randy? What did,
No,
He
I said it.
Okay,
okay.
Opposed.
all right, sorry about
So
that.
you got 2 oppositions.
Okay.
Okay. Second public comment from anybody on any, yeah, go
I
ahead,
have
sir.
a question on the park. 2 things. A couple weeks ago, every elementary school kid was walking down the sidewalk. Then they get to your John's house, and they're walking on the street because there's no sidewalk. Then they turn around and go up Almont Road where the sidewalk in places is this, and only this wide. And they're hitting the trees as they're walking. And I'm talking about little kids. I mean, this is stupid.
That's good.
Yeah, but we are all part of this damn deal.
And we could not put a sidewalk in on the village.
All right. Second
That's
question.
my,
You're on the park board. I was going to ask you, what happened to all that money that was supposed to come down from the county, from the federal government to redo of all this stuff in the park? What happened to all that money?
Do you remember? I need more information.
I was here.
This is my first year, and Dennis is my co-rep
Uh,
on there, so we're learning a lot.
There was a year and a half ago,
Okay.
2 years ago, my daughter even brought a complete design that she did for the park on her own because she's part of the community. And she brought it, she displayed it. And at that time, there was a guy from the county, and he explained that they got so much money to use on repairing the park. That's why they spent all that, they redid all of Dryden Park.
What happened to that money that was supposed to come here?
You know, let me research this. I'll have an answer for you next meeting, because I don't know and I don't want to tell you the wrong thing.
But because that's what a lot of that money went to redo Dryden's Park. That's why it's such a nice park now.
Okay.
But none of, where's the money that was supposed to come here, redo the kids' toys? I saw some people cleaning the river, but that's part of the cleanup committee anyway. That shouldn't be part of that money.
Right, let me research that, and like I said, I'll have the information for you the next meeting, because I'm not sure, and I will get that for you.
Thank you, sir. Anything else in the public? Okay, if not, we'll move on to board discussion. Anything from the board? Mike? Randy? Jenny? Kim? Dennis?
Really.
Okay. Look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Motion on the floor with support to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Mike, are we off?
Good stuff.